Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today to our webinar, Business Development in Brazil for Startups. Today we have another webinar about Brazil because this month Brazil is in the spotlight. So you are going to see a lot of information about Brazil, how to expand business there, how to connect with people there, and how you can prepare your marketing and business strategy to actually enter to Brazil. So our guests today are all located in Brazil, and our moderator is Rafael Pinto, our business associate in Rio. So for all of you that are watching right now the webinar, I want to remind you, you can send us an email to contact@latamstartups.biz or through the hashtag LatamStartups. So welcome, Rafael, and welcome our guest.
Thank you very much, Miriam. It's exciting to continue this dialogue about Brazil and possibilities for links with Canada and Brazil. I wanted to quickly introduce the three speakers. We're very lucky to have three entrepreneurs, passionate entrepreneurs who know the challenges and opportunities that exist in doing business in Brazil. So their insights are going to be very helpful for everyone who's attending the event. So we're gonna first. I just want to quickly have a quick background of introduction of who they are. We can have them answer some questions we've set up. We have Ursula Araújo, who's a businesswoman with 9 years of experience in the business world, including knowledge management, working with projects and processes. She's a consultant of processes of mediation, co-creation. She's also the founder of Carioteca, which is a platform that focuses on collaborative behavior, and also the co-founder of GOMA, which is an interdisciplinary association of entrepreneurs that develop entrepreneurship in networks, sustainable design, and innovation, social innovation. She also works on a lot of projects for women empowerment through business. We also have Antonio Amaral, who's passionate about the entrepreneurial cause and has over 6 years of experience in working with entrepreneur organizations. He co-founded his own company called Panorama Consulting International, and after this he worked for Endeavor, which is the largest organization that works on development of entrepreneurship in the world. He also worked at one of the best accelerators in Brazil, that's 21212, where he had the role of relationship with investors and portfolio manager. And currently he is the manager of operations at B2W, which is one of the biggest digital companies in Latin America. And last but not least, we have Marcelo Roque, who is an Endeavor IT entrepreneur. He's also the founding partner of Finksy Technology, founding director of Entrepreneur Organization in Rio, and also the member of Direct Council of the Commercial Association in Rio de Janeiro. So it's really great to have people with this much experience on the ground, and perhaps we can start with a couple questions and have them run through it, and we can leave space for questions from the public in the end. So perhaps the first question, which I think is a lot of people in Canada would have, or in other places, are what are the difficulties? What do you think, in your opinion, are the difficulties in running a business in Brazil? Perhaps we can start with Marcelo, if you can give some of your insights. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. From my experience, I think there are a couple of points which kind of hamper the business progress in Brazil, which is pretty much the bureaucracy. It kind of tramples the agility required that a startup needs in Brazil in developing their businesses. Also the taxes, which are enormous, especially if we're going to make an anonymous society, which is the sort of company that you would have if you're going to get an investor. You need to have around 16.33% in taxes, instead of using certain benefits that the government provides to simple companies, which is like 5% of taxes. The employee costs also is one of the biggest around the world. The average worker costs around 2 times the value that you're paying in taxes and benefits that you have to pay to the government. So I think that's pretty much it. You end up requiring a lot of money and a lot of more patience when compared to other countries when you're going to open a business in Brazil.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marcelo. Very important to take into account all these inputs. Ursula, would you have any additional insights for this question? Can you hear us, Ursula? You have to unmute your mic.
I think she may have a problem right now with her microphone. Let's go with the next person.
Sure. Antonio, can you add to any of the comments that Marcelo mentioned or any other new insights, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, everybody, for the opportunity. Good afternoon for everybody. In my opinion, running a business is tough anywhere. I know that Brazil has some barriers, but I'm pretty sure that other countries had other ones. Talking specifically about Brazil, we usually say here that entrepreneurs like to play soccer in Brazil, but this soccer match is with a square ball. The field is full of holes. We have the judge plays against the players, but we can see people scoring goals. So what I think through this analogy, that I have never heard a real entrepreneur telling me that he gave up to become an entrepreneur in Brazil because the environment was so difficult. Of course, we face some challenges. In my opinion, we can say that these barriers concentrate, for example, in culture of fear of failure. So when we see in the United States, like entrepreneur saying, "Oh, I've broke 3 companies and now I'm ready to start the 4th one." And here, the people have the fear of failing. So this is one of the biggest problems. The other one is we don't have a lot of capital here. We have just a beginning industry of VC, venture capital, and also angel investing. We have very few IPOs. So because of that, we don't have a lot of liquidity. So it's hard for the first investors at the first rounds take the risk. And I think maybe the last biggest challenge for becoming an entrepreneur in Brazil, that a few companies really dream big. Usually people in Brazil, I don't know, maybe it's because the geographic size, people are enough satisfied if they are the biggest in their city, in the biggest or the state. And even like when you have a very big dream, you want to be the biggest in Brazil. So that's another problem that leads us with a few role models, examples to inspire a new generation of entrepreneurs.
Excellent. No, thank you both. I guess understanding the difficulties that we do have, perhaps we can look at the positive side. There is still opportunities. What do you think will be the most important trends in the Brazilian tech and startup scene now and coming up in the years to come? What are these opportunities that do still exist in Brazil, even if there are these obstacles to overcome? Perhaps you can go back to Marcelo.
Sure. The most important trends that we're seeing nowadays is pretty much the fintechs, education startups as well. They are having a lot of traction. But I think the great thing about Brazil, which I believe is the most valuable opportunity, is that we are at least 5 years back when compared to technology in other countries. So it's very easy to replicate models that are available in the US and in Canada and Europe to Brazil, because we are way behind when compared into technology advance. Just to give an example, and this one more like in Latin America, I have a friend of mine, a known colleague, that just discovered that a way that we do payment here in Brazil, a technology that is consolidated here in Brazil, which is the boleto, like a tool that you use to pay a certain fee, does not exist in Chile, which is a country. It's like two steps, two countries to our left, and he's pretty much taking the technology that we already have here, which is like a red ocean today, and implementing it into a blue ocean in another country by our side. So I think that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Marcelo, perhaps Antonio, you can add to perhaps some experiences you've gone through as well that you already know about.
Yeah, sure. I pretty agree with Marcelo. I think there are plenty of opportunities, especially in the mobile, fintech, big data, with analytics, education, and health. which is basically the average that we can see trends around the world. I think, in my opinion, we're facing a disruption, innovation in the digital market here in Brazil. So I would think one of the biggest trends will be becoming physical business and transforming them into digital. I can see lots of transformations in this direction here.
Perfect. Thank you, Antonio. We have Ursula back. We lost her connection for 1 second. Can you hear us, Ursula? Can you hear us? I know the connection is a little bit shaky. We can come back to Ursula in a second. Perhaps we can keep on taking advantage of the questions. Perhaps we did mention the sectors. I guess so. If there's a company or investor in Canada interested in doing business in Brazil or a startup there, where do you suggest the startup can begin to connect with the community here in Brazil? Some people outside interested in fintech, in the fintech community in Brazil, what are your suggestions on how they reach out or how they connect with the community inside Brazil of the tech world, for example? Perhaps going back to Marcelo.
All right. I think the accelerator environment and the institutional partners such as the Commercial Association, the Associação Brasileira de Startups, which is like the biggest institutional representative of startups in Brazil. All of those can be found online through the AB Startups directory, and I think those could be good starting points. Also, if we're going to bring a product from another country, one thing that I usually recommend to all companies that are doing some sort of soft landing in Brazil is to find a local partner. The cultural difference between countries, the legal, the taxes, and all the network necessary to do business in Brazil would come easier by having a local partner as well.
Very important point, Marcelo. Could you quickly go back and what would be your suggestions on how they could find a local partner? I know you mentioned the accelerators, ABC Startup, but any other ideas on how someone can reach out to and find serious local partners? Would you have any ideas on that you could share?
Usually there are a lot of soft landing and internationalization companies that not only have great network and great commercial bridges that can be made, but also through the many initiatives that we have with FARPEX and with the institutions like Associação Comercial of Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo. There are a lot of channels that you can go through on the internet, especially. I can also provide the URL after for you guys to replicate to the interested parties, so that you can actually reach these companies that are specialized, or these partners that are specialized in bringing products into our country.
Fantastic. No, this helps a lot. Antonio, any experiences that you can share on how you think people can connect with the communities here in Brazil?
Yeah, sure. In addition to Marcelo, I think there is something very important, specifically in fintech, as you asked, that is understand the consumer behavior in fintech here in Brazil. As we can see, we have lots of people that doesn't have a bank account, or they have a credit card, but they don't manage their finances really well. So I think there are lots of opportunities here, and it's very important for any company that wants to enter in Brazil understands a little bit this reality. And in addition, with Marcelo said, I would strongly recommend that the entrepreneurs and the investors would look to talk for local VCs that already have investment thesis in fintech industry, and they're mapping this area and maybe are one of the best connected people here in Brazil. And also talk with the banks. The banks are facing today lots of challenges. Again, startups and banks are looking for more innovative programs to support entrepreneurship and fintech. So I think that's another interesting way that entrepreneurs can look for.
Excellent, excellent insights, both of you. So let's move ahead. Let's imagine the companies are in Brazil and settled already. They went through the obstacles, the challenges, a lot of patience, as Marcelo said. What do you think are the ingredients for startups that are foreign startups, for example, that are in the Brazilian market? What are the ingredients that you think are important for them to have relative business success in the Brazilian market? What are the different things that they should focus on in their business development to really be successful in Brazil? Perhaps going back to Marcelo again.
Uh, uh, I have like a bullet point that I use in all my business, all my companies and products inside Finksy, which is first you have to have a killer product. If the product isn't market ready and extremely good in quality and value proposition, I believe you may be wasting your time. To find a local partner, I think that's more than important. That's one of the points that if you're planning to internationalize, you could try to build your own network. You could try to make your own office and send emissaries and people to the other country. But well, you have you will need to invest a lot to do that, and the time to mature is considered too big for a startup, in my opinion. The third point I would say is like to seek smart money, especially from investors that are known to have track record in the area that your product is going to act in Brazil. And the fourth point is to forever keep it lean. And as long as you can take it, keep it lean.
Actually, just to add on to that question, and going back to Marcelo before Antonio, the challenges of the language. How difficult is that for international startup? What would they need to do to prepare themselves? Can they work in English? These are things perhaps that foreign startups need to understand. What are your insights?
Sorry, my connection broke. I couldn't listen.
Sure, no problem. Just to add on to that, your answers regarding the language part. What do the startups need to be prepared to deal with? Can they do their business in English? What are your suggestions regarding a foreign company here in Brazil dealing with communication in English?
Depends a lot of the target market. Most of the business in Brazil, especially if you're targeting the micro and small companies in Brazil, you need to be in Portuguese. You need to have a tool, a system, or legal, everything in Portuguese, and be able to provide customer support in Portuguese. It's very important. There's also the component that concerns culture, which the Brazilian people isn't very focused on being straight to the point. Sometimes you would ask a Brazilian a question, and they will do an entire argument before going to give you an answer. And this commercial know-how is one of the things that you will miss if you don't have a local partner and if you don't have people locally working to develop said product.
Great, thank you. The same question to you, Antonio, and any other insights that you can share with us?
In terms of language, I also believe that you should talk in Portuguese with Brazilians. We have just a very small part of the population that speaks English, and inside of this part, which speaks, understands, and can read, is also a very small part. So I think that's very important, especially if you are a B2C company.
And your suggestions about a startup that's already here. What are the ingredients for them to have success in Brazil? Canadian, let's say Canadian, a foreign startup in Brazil. What would you consider, Antonio, are the ingredients for them to succeed in Brazil?
Well, I don't really believe that exists a formula, but I'm pretty sure that I can see all the companies that got succeed. They have at least 3 components. They had customers, they had talents in their team, and they had access to market. If a company has that, a really good solution, validated, solving a problem, customers that love this product. That's the first point. The second one is the entrepreneur should not be just only one guy, a showman. He really have to have a very great team supporting him with other partners, very talented, with complementary skills. If they have that, they can grow while the company grows. And the third thing, which is very important, is access to market. They can talk with different companies, or they can talk with different customers, and they have a lot of distribution channels. In my opinion, with these three components, they can have enough access to capital because they are very well positioned to succeed. But I think it's important to say, none of this would really happen well, or the entrepreneur will be succeeded without a very good execution. So to achieve these 3 points, the entrepreneur should be very good in executing and being hands-on.
Excellent. No, excellent. I think you guys covered a lot of different aspects that a foreign company needs to understand in terms of how the day-by-day operations works in Brazil and to succeed. Perhaps we have some other questions. Miriam, would you have any other questions that came from your side to ask both Antonio and Marcelo?
Yes, we have more questions here. So one of the questions for international startups really is to manage expectations about how to enter to the Brazilian market. So in your experience, how long it takes for a company to actually get the first customer or to actually get some kind of succeed in the market? And we can start with Antonio.
Just to understand a little bit, the company has already operation in other country and is entering Brazil, or it's a ground zero operation in Brazil?
It's a ground zero operation in Brazil. I have, in my personal experience, have to advise many companies on how to enter to Latin America. And some of them will focus in Brazil because the market size. So if it's the first time that they are focusing in Brazil, or they are entering Latin America and their enter point is Brazil, how you advise those companies, what is the expectation for them to actually get the first customer? It's going to take how many years or how many visits or how it works in general for them to understand a little bit how they have to wait actually and how much patience they have to do, they have to put to actually enter to the country.
Okay, thank you. I think my first advice is do not underestimate the size of Brazilian market. The domestic market is very large, and Brazilians have a very high engagement in social media compared to the other countries. So especially if you're a digital company, there's a huge opportunity here. We usually say that Brazil is half of Latin America. So if you really want to take advantage of the market size of Brazil, I think one of the best advice is having someone local here that really understands the language, that really understands some specific details about consumer behavior and Brazilian culture. That will be very important. I think depends a lot on the kind of the industry. If it's a business to business or it's a business to consumer, and I think this will determine the time of the company will get a client. But for sure, if you have some local one here, it will be easier for getting the right contacts and setting up meetings and doing a roadshow. I think one of the biggest opportunities what I can see here in Brazil is we have the culture here of having too many copycats. We usually see something getting success and growing around the world and try to replicate here in Brazil, but in a smaller scale. So if a company has any benchmark or anyone with a similar business model, maybe and to get traction and grow in Brazil, it's making acquisitions or proposing JVs, joint ventures, with local startups and local companies here. Probably we'll get easier in terms of time, in clients, and local knowledge to get all of this knowledge.
Perfect. Thank you, Antonio. Now, Marcelo, I would like to have your opinion over that. How do you advise those companies that are coming for the first time to Brazil and they are, expanding business? This is the entry point for them to Brazil. How patient they have to be, or how long it will take?
That depends a lot on your marketing strategy, I would say. I have had companies coming to Brazil, and I've seen companies that came to Brazil and ended up having their first 100 customers in the first month of operation by doing some good inbound marketing. And I also had companies that came to Brazil and spent an entire year without actually having one client closing a deal. So that depends entirely a lot on your product. If your product and the marketing behind it sort of solves an issue we have here in Brazil, the demand for it will be almost immediate. Brazilian market is very big. We like to say if you manage to put a product into Brazil, you can also put the same product into the entire Latin America, given how broad our country is and how diverse the country is. So I would say a good marketing strategy can get you clients very fast.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we are going to have a webinar about marketing strategy, but this is a really important question in order to do a good business strategy, right? When you are an international startup and you are just facing this kind of situation that you are entering in a new market. So in terms of marketing strategies, how important is social media in Brazil, and what are the best ways to connect with the marketing part of Brazil there? So I would like to start with Marcelo.
Social media here is very important. Inbound marketing is still, I would say, it started to take baby steps in Brazil. It's not the same, walking the same speed that is already in other countries. So we have a lot of opportunity to do inbound marketing and growth hacking in Brazil. I like to, I can give you an experience from a product of mine. We were investing around 5,000 reais a month to do marketing with said products that we were launching, and by paying media and everything, to have said product broadcast to customers. And we came to realize that only after we started participating into discussion groups into LinkedIn, Facebook, which wasn't as expensive as paying for media, our growth doubled. So there's a lot of small strategies, small growth strategies that can bring customers into your database, and it must involve social media. Okay, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you, Marcelo. Sorry, I was looking for my microphone. Now, Antonio, how important do you think is social media, and what channels do you recommend to actually, get into contact with some Brazilian audience?
Well, I think Brazilian people is one of the biggest high engaged customers in the world in terms of social media. We are always in the top 5 of the main so can use it average from the population and take advantage of this high engagement to talk with the customers and make viral campaigns. As Marcelo said, inbound market is something that's really fresh here, and we can see like lots of returns. Probably where the company will get more audience in Brazil would probably be in Facebook, Google, and Instagram, and we can see some trends that started in United States and are also happening here in Brazil, that many customers are using Pinterest to buy products. and we can see also people using WhatsApp and Instagram also as a e-commerce channel. So I think those are trends that are still small, but I can see a lot of opportunity to grow here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Do you guys, any of you, have an idea how is the penetration of smartphones in the market?
Well, it's very big, considering that we already passed the number of smartphones, access to the internet in Brazil. It's biggest when compared to computer access, and that everyone has at least one smartphone in their pockets. We are looking at a very mobile-friendly environment today.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So for the next question, and this is our last question before we go to the questions from the public, we'd like to know what is your best advice for those companies that are expanding business in Brazil? If it's one thing that you have to tell them right now to do before do anything to expand to Brazil, what will be? Antonio, you're first on this.
So I think if I can get just one advice is, again, do not underestimate the Brazilian market and have someone local here to help you, because it's a company with very specific culture, and it's really important for you to understand well how it works here, logistics, tax, labor, cultural challenges, and I think those items are critical for any company succeed here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And now, Marcelo, what is your best advice for those companies if you have to say just one?
Yeah, the best advice would be the same. Find a local partner, be resilient. Doing business in Brazil isn't for the average entrepreneur. It's like different from United States, where you can have a company and make money out of it easily because the market welcomes it. The markets in Brazil sort of repels the entrepreneurial initiative because of the bureaucracy, the costs attached to it. Takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of risk taking, and of course good connections. So if you can find a local partner to smooth those things up, well, that's my advice to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we have received already one question, but before we go with that question, I want to to say to the audience to please, those that are watching the video through YouTube, you can send your questions to contact@LatamStartups, just as is written here, latamstartups.biz, or through the hashtag LatamStartups, and we are going to pass your question to our guest. And just to remind you two things before we pass to the questions and people are actually writing questions. We'd like to invite you as well to be part of our LATAM chats next June 21st at 12 p.m. East as well. We are going to have a really nice chat through Twitter with some startups that are scaling up from Brazil, and they are looking for two new markets. So the LATAM chats normally happens once a month. We have this conversation about the challenges and opportunities for startups to actually look for new markets. So don't miss that LATAM chats. And for the second thing is to remind you that we have our LATAM Startups Conference in Mexico this year in October. So the ecosystem in Latin America are going to meet there, along with the ecosystem from Canada. So we have investors, we have people from supporting movements and supporting entrepreneurs that are scaling up new markets. So if you need any information about that, just send us a quick email, and we're happy to share information about that. So we are going to go with the first question from our guest, and this is regarding the cities that they are working on. And the question is, what is the difference between market size between the big cities in Brazil? Which one is more important to start with? And I don't know, who wants to speak first?
Go ahead, Antonio.
Sorry, could you please repeat the question? I don't think I got it.
Yes. What is the difference between market size? Which city is more important in Brazil to start up? and expansion.
Okay, thanks. So, of course, the biggest city we have here is São Paulo. The second one is Rio, and we have some local cities which are also important cities in their states that are becoming reference in some specific industries. But for sure, if you have to choose one place to go to São Paulo. There's where it's concentrated the biggest VCs, investors, companies, and also it's 45 minutes in a plane to Rio, so it's very, very close to Rio.
Perfect. Thank you, Antonio. Marcelo, did you have any answer about that?
I would say this pretty much the same. São Paulo speaks for, it's the biggest income into Brazil's economy, followed by Rio de Janeiro and Minas Gerais at Belo Horizonte. So I would say that three cities are very interesting for any business that want to have a big market to start impacting, and it's a good bridge as well to reach other cities, especially if you have a good traction in those.
Okay, we have another very interesting question here, and is somebody asking if you know any soft landing program or if Brazil has a startup visa, same as Chile, to enter to the market. Any information about that?
I know a couple of companies that do this sort of business. There's also a couple of accelerators that have presence into the entire Latin America. Also, we have local partners that are currently looking for opportunities to bring to Brazil. So I would say it's possible. I can actually reply about answer you considering the visa question, which I'm not aware, to be honest. But as to context to said initiative to bring a company to Brazil, there's a lot of opportunity. I believe one of the things we could do is to actually give a list of those to this audience afterwards. What do you think?
Yes, that will be great. Actually, we know that the program SEED has a soft landing program, but you know, we know about SEED since 2014. Did you guys have any information about SEED as a program for soft landing program?
I'm sorry, you said about SEED?
SEED,
yeah. The one in Minas Gerais?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, they had two initiatives, I believe, in Brazil that were very strong. One was SEED, and I believe it's already operating again, and it has space for international startups as well. And it's one of the soft landings that they also help with the visa part. And there's Startup Brazil, which is the program that helps develop companies by providing initial money as well, the initial, I would say, part of a seed capital for startups, and they also have a space for international startups.
Perfect. Those were the two questions that we had for now from the audience. I'm pretty sure that they are going to mail us later some more questions about how to do business in Brazil. But in the meantime, we think this information is going to be really valuable for the audience. Thank you so much for being here today and for supporting the LATAM startups with these insights about how to do business in Brazil. So please join us in the next webinar. It's going to be about marketing. It's in June 23rd, right, Rafael? Yeah, into June 23rd. And June 21st is our LATAM chats. So we're going to pass you information about this. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great day. Bye now.